When Xenoblade Chronicles was announced for localization on the Wii, my heart skipped a beat. While there are plenty of JRPGs to go around, the more the merrier, and I wouldn't pass up the chance to experience another Monolith game. I didn't have quite the same reaction to Xenoblade Chronicles X at first, but it really grew on me over time. X's timeline starts in 2054 AD, when a mysterious alien race assaults the Earth and decimates the human race as we know it. Arcs deploy across the universe, and the only known survivor is the White Whale, which crash lands on the distant planet Mira. Cue a quest to kickstart mankind's new home, and you have your basic gist of what's going on. To be clear, the story is not related to the original Xenoblade in any way. You don't need to have played the other game to have an idea of what's going on here. And by JRPG standards, X's story is rather clear and concise. The player goes through the experience as a silent protagonist, with a minor amount of dialogue choices in tow. You're not going to find a branching narrative here. Instead, you'll follow a linear storyline, with the ability to take control of any party member as your primary avatar, including the one you make. Where X sells itself isn't through its serviceable yet sometimes drawn-out story, it's the ability to create your own adventures. Through the use of a lone base called New LA and a formidable yet vulnerable organization called Blade, you'll slowly learn more about Mira, the creatures that inhabit it, and the dangers involved beyond the alien race trying to wipe out your species. The giant sprawling maps, of which there are 5, all accessible at the start, are a dream come true for exploration enthusiasts, with secrets at every turn and points of interest every minute or so. While the visuals aren't anything to gawk at on a grand scale, the draw distance is absolutely incredible, to the point where I'm in awe Monolith was able to squeeze these textures into a Wii U title. Walking around in X is wondrous, and spotting giant screen-high enemies and world bosses is something you need to do yourself to truly grasp the game's scale. Players will start off with a male or female avatar if they're choosing, and it's off to the races with a rather quick tutorial session. From there, the game completely ceases to hold your hand, which is going to be a massive point of contention for some. Point blank, X isn't a game that you can casually pick up and play. You need to immerse yourself in it. This not only goes for leveling up your character, but unlocking the requirements for story missions. Xenoblade Chronicles X is a tough and unforgiving game if you have no affinity towards the JRPG genre. Sure, there are a few modern conveniences peppered in, like fast travel, a detailed world map, and the ability to save anywhere, but you're gonna need to master nearly every facet of X to progress past the first few chapters. Hell, you're actually gonna need to read the manual to pick up on a few major things, old school style, and I ended up taking notes on paper, just like the NES days. It's gonna be a polarizing thing for sure, but personally, I'm stoked to play something like this again. Learning all the game's ins and outs was a joy. It's particularly satisfying to take everything in and feel like you've accomplished something. The battle system is just as unforgiving as a lot of other aspects of X. It's based on an auto-attack system that presents you with a few skills at the start, such as power attacks or debuffs, but after a few hours the learning curve really ramps up. Players will have to juggle between ranged and melee attacks and abilities, both of which have their own styles, pros, and cons. By way of an MMO hotbar with icons and cooldowns, you'll have to micromanage all of the tools available to you, learn what abilities combo into others, and divine the right time to use them. Combat is very nuanced in practice, as enemies often have appendages that can be broken for strategic value. On paper it sounds like basic stuff, but once I learned the dodge and block abilities, timing became absolutely key to surviving a boss battle. Additionally, mastering other facets like the soul voice system and knowledge of passive skill energy will help. If all that sounds scary, maybe Xenoblade Chronicles X isn't the game for you. Don't worry about the controls though, they work great, mostly thanks to the gamepad. As I mentioned previously, it's available as a map and fast travel datapad of sorts. If you're so inclined, you can also play the entire game with just the Wii U Pro controller, which works just as fine. In terms of length, X hits that sweet spot a lot of games in the genre tend to provide, 50 hours or so for the story and double that to do everything else. What sets this game apart from most of the competition, however, is its ability to grab the player's attention throughout, and not just during specific juicy story sections. I would often spend hours at a time just aimlessly wandering around, finding mining locations to raise my income, as well as hunting down tyrants. Every zone has a distinct feel to it, and in all, I've probably spent 10 hours in each individual area. Skells have become a huge part of the game's marketing scheme, and it's important to know that you're not going to get them until roughly 20 to 30 hours into the core story, and that's assuming you only do a light amount of exploring on top of that. After unlocking the opportunity to even obtain the license to pilot one, you're gonna have to complete a lengthy multi-tier optional quest line. When I had first heard that figure based on player experiences with the Japanese version, I was kinda turned off, but actually playing the game, I quickly forgot about them, and when the Skells did arrive, they felt like the cherry on top, opening up brand new exploration options via flight. Xenoblade does come with an online component, and just to be clear, I was not able to fully test it out. In addition to multiplayer squad support, there's also a system where you can recruit or interact with potential party members in an asynchronous manner, the latter of which I personally did have access to during my review period. It's a nice little bonus, as adding in a member from a vast online pool of players, even pre-launch, can help you fulfill a need in your party makeup that may be missing. Otherwise, the game can be played completely offline, without any fear of missing out on an essential part of the game. This is one of the more interesting reviews I've done as of late, because I know Xenoblade Chronicles X will be divisive, but it truly feels like an MMO world I've been living in for several weeks now. The more grimdark theme isn't quite as charming as the original Xenoblade, but everything else makes up for it. For the full review of Xenoblade Chronicles X written by Chris Carter, please check Destructoid.com.